As Will mentioned there, one of Pei's most acclaimed structures is the East Building of the U.S. National Gallery in Washington. Finished in 1978, it was among the most innovative buildings of its time, bringing his modernist style to the American Capitol. Pei designed several art museums in his career, always with the idea that the building itself should be no less artistic than the work it houses. The East Building is no exception. So the director of the U.S. National Gallery, Kaywin Feldman, joins us now. Kaywin, thank you for joining us. And how have you been processing and reflecting on the passing of Pei?
Good morning. Of course, it's had a huge impact on all of us at the National Gallery of Art. It is such an honor and a pleasure to come to work every day in this beautiful building designed by Pei. It's the sense of wonder in the experience of being there. As I arrive very early in the morning, and the space is just filled with light. And I think the quiet and stillness makes me very conscious of the volume of the space. It's kind of a secular cathedral for art. And the building then changes again as it fills with people throughout the day. Pei really understood the role of an art museum in inspiring wonder and in bringing together both space and light. So many architects are afraid of light and art museums, and Pei knew exactly where light needed to be to animate the space and to bring the works of art alive, but also where to hide the lights so that works of art could have their own sort of independent statement.
And it must be such an inspiring experience each day to walk through the East Building of your museum and to be able to experience its design firsthand. I understand that the East Building was a very difficult project for Pei. When he was commissioned to build it, he had to create something new, something bold, but he also had to do it without upstaging the adjacent building, the West Building, as well as the nearby Capitol. So how did he reconcile that? How did he solve that?
It is, I have to say, every day I sort of marvel at his genius of the challenge that he was given. The space, of course, is quite difficult. It's a trapezoidal space, and Pei brilliantly solved that challenge by thinking of the space as three different triangles. And realized that being right in between two boldly neoclassical buildings with the West Building and the U.S. Capitol, that this kind of modernist approach really was the way to both make a bold statement but also unite the buildings. Both the West Building and the East Building are clad in this beautiful pink Tennessee marble, so he references the past while embracing the future. And I think about the role of Paul Mellon, one of our great benefactors, working with J. Carter Brown, the director at the time, and Pei. And they knew that they had to create a building that would be both, timeless and also something that would embrace and tell us about the future.
Yeah, and that really characterizes a lot of his work. Could you comment on the historical significance of Pei's work, of the East Building? Because when it opened, and it opened in 1978, it fundamentally changed the way people thought about museums. It altered people's perceptions of a museum. Could you tell us a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I was actually 12 years old living in Washington, D.C. when the building opened, and I actually very poignantly remember the excitement of the community when the building opened. But it's also important to keep in mind that Pei was designing a museum for the entire nation, because the National Gallery of Art serves our nation. We see about 5 million visitors a year who come to experience our collections and the building. And so Pei brilliantly embraced that challenge and opportunity.
Well, Kaywin Feldman, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the passing of Pei and, of course, this beautiful building at the U.S. National Gallery of Art. Thank you so much.